The Last Starship. Right. So I wanted to move away from the game for a little bit because I think that as well as the game, loads of people are going to be interested in that. There's also a whole community of indie devs and just devs in general interested in early access and how launches go. So I thought maybe we could take a little bit of a dive into some of our figures.
Let's have a look at some numbers. Are we allowed to publish our Steam numbers?
Yeah.
Are
I
we?
reckon. What's the worst that'll happen?
Well, Gabe Newell might fly over and get angry with us.
Hey, it'll be good to see him. It'll be good to see him. I think it's fine. I think wish lists are fine.
Here we go then.
So let's have a little.
The Last Starship wish lists.
So I think that's pretty healthy.
30,000 wish lists. How long have we been going for? We've been going for 2 months now.
Well, we can see on the graph.
Yeah, there's
the graph. The graph shows.
Yeah, so this is when we announced. This was the announcement video.
Yeah.
The first video, and that is update 1, 3 weeks ago.
So I suppose because in terms of our marketing, we push videos out on YouTube, don't we? And that's about it.
That's right.
There's a mail list that goes out with it. You tweet a little bit, but we don't do a huge amount more.
No, we're really behind the times, really, aren't we? We've had several discussions about whether we want to make TikTok videos of us playing around during the day, and I think the unanimous answer is no. We don't.
Yeah.
That's for young'uns. You young'uns can have TikTok.
Yeah. And also, it's how do you divide up your time when you're a small company?
Yeah, that's right.
We don't have time
only so many hours in the day, isn't there?
Yeah. To do everything. But I mean, look at that. So that second video spike's about half as high as the first. It'll be interesting to see how the spike
which correlates with YouTube's views as well. The YouTube views of the first video are about double the update 1 video. Because it's a new game announcement, and a new game announcement always goes further than an update video, because by definition, the update video is only really people that are interested.
That's
directly.
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then I think this is around where Quill did his video. Quill 18, when he played the game, was quite a big deal actually, and it was fascinating to watch. And I think that this return upward is pretty much down to that.
And you can see the drop off on video 1 was much faster than the drop off on video 2.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? This area underneath this is actually very good.
Yeah.
Whereas this one has sharply come down very quickly. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and going forward, our plan. We won't be doing the monthly update videos, but there'll be regular update videos, which hopefully will just keep the flywheel spinning, right?
Yeah.
Just keep people coming in. Have you seen the series from Introversion on Last Starship?
I hope so. I think the game is quite shareable as well. I think there's an element of community content creation that is just inherently shareable. Like I've built this amazing ship, or look at my amazing fleet. Whether it's just pictures or whether it's even sharing the whole thing, that seems to fit this game very well, as compared to say something like Scan Somber, where we had no ability to do any community sharing stuff.
That's right. It's a one shot piece, isn't it? So we've got the wish list, but you've moved ahead, because then the next question to sort of try and tease apart is, where have they come from, and what has been generating that effect? And there's some quite telling information, I think, on this graph. See the same 2 peaks, don't you?
Same 2 peaks. This is the launch. Yeah, this is the launch. This is the total number of visitors, is this grey line. Right, so you can see we have these visitor spikes. And the total number of visitors goes up here when we launch the second video. This is actually, this brown line is direct navigation, it's called. That's the day that Quill 18 did his playtest.
Right.
So on that day, a lot of people went to Steam and typed in The Last Starship and found it directly and visited our page. I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
The green line is Steam's discoverability algorithm. So Steam recommends games to players, right? When you go to Steam, it shows you loads of games. If you look at one game in the Steam page, it often recommends other games to you that are related to that. But there's an algorithm behind that.
Yeah.
And so that green line represents the algorithm recommending our game to other players. And I think that is something that we really want to try and get maximized on, isn't it?
But again, it's following that same pattern, isn't it? We put the video out,
Yep.
the algorithm responds, it starts picking up.
It's like a feedback loop, isn't it? It's like, it's a cross between a benign feedback loop and some sort of Sauron's eye. It's slowly looking around the indie landscape, focusing on one game every now and then, and saying, let's try and push that game a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah. You see it sort of following I think the grey line at the top is because that's additive.
That's the total one, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that little spike at the bottom, isn't it? That's when all the traffic is kicking in. And then you see the discovery queue kind of responding to it. It's going, right. Oh, okay.
It's like a delayed response, isn't it? The discovery queue is going, this game's really interesting to people. Let's recommend it to more people.
Yeah. And then presumably it kind of saturates, because something must cause it to turn over. That it's been shown to a bunch of people and the click-through rate's probably been quite high. You'd imagine something like that.
Yeah.
And then we get to the point where it's going, okay, we've shown this to everyone that's interested at the moment, and then starts turning in the other direction.
I guess so. Or people see the store page and they see the video, and then if they're going to watch it, they've watched it at that point. Probably other games come to the top as well, right? We're in a giant pool with all the other indies out there.
True.
And other games will be doing their own promotion and getting their own YouTube spikes, and then they'll bubble up to the top. Because you just don't know we don't know, do we, whether Steam's algorithm scours YouTube for big hits or whether it just entirely relies on its own data.
That's right. And it's one of those situations where we don't want to sort of jack it or trick it or undermine it, but understanding what are the legitimate things that we can be doing to encourage that flywheel, because it works for everyone, right? If the game's being shown to people that want to play the game, everybody wins, right? We win, Valve wins, and
absolutely.
the games win.
And that's the whole point of it, right? The whole point of it is that there's just too much content coming onto Steam now. There has to be some sort of automation for recommending games. There's no way that Valve can do it, because I think they're still, on the scale of companies that are as valuable as Valve, they're actually a very small team. And they just don't. I think that many years ago, probably over a decade ago, they decided that they did not want to be sat there curating their Steam database and deciding who got the top spot.
And I think that was exactly the right decision, because the idea of sort of having to be the kingmaker, deciding which games.
They had to do something about Unity and Unreal Engine and all the tool changes that have occurred and all of that. All of that change that occurred in the indie space just blew indie games wide open,
Yeah.
And it's completely understandable that we now have 10 times or 20 times as many indie games as we did then.
Yeah.
And they knew that they had to do something about that,
Yeah.
And you sort of, I guess any indie developer loves and loathes this system, because it's a feedback loop that benefits games that are already successful, which creates that power curve. And it's sort of a system that you feel like you have to understand, because none of this existed, right? This algorithm didn't exist when we were launching Prison Architect. It wasn't exposed to us in this way. They may have had an early version of it, maybe. All this data, all this business of like playtest leading to wish lists and then trying to convert wish lists is kind of new as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think we obviously have to try and keep up with it, because we need people to see our game.
And I think the one of the things that we need to recognise, though, is that we do have a bunch of fans. So when we put a video out, now it's not as big as you might think. Some of the fail masterclass videos that we made were getting views of about sort of 9,000 or something, I think, weren't they? They were.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't that everything we put out suddenly gets 100,000 people watching it. I mean, what's the?
Well, I can think this is it. The Last Starship announcement video, 46,000 views. I think we can conclude from that we have about 46,000 hardcore fans that follow us on YouTube, because that's a new game announcement.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's still a lot of people, right? If you were a brand spanking new studio, you would struggle to pick that up. Not a lot of press coverage for us of Last Starship.
No, we just don't seem to get press coverage anymore, do we? We have a number of places like RPS and PC Gamer that tend to cover us still. But in terms of worldwide press, basically zero. interest.
Did PC Gamer cover the Last Starship? I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't
there was something on their website. But it's such a different era, isn't it? You remember, 15 years ago, to us, getting a couple of pages in Edge magazine or PC Gamer magazine was a massive deal to us. And being mentioned on the front cover and everything. We just don't think like that anymore, do we? The marketplace has changed so much in all this time that's passed. Yeah, I guess the biggest Prison Architect videos used to get to 150,000 or more. Prison Architect was a beast of its own, wasn't it? After that, 236,000 views on our final Prison Architect video.
That in itself is something that I learned years ago with Multi-Linear, but it always sticks in my mind that just because people played your last game doesn't mean they're going to play the next one.
Yeah.
They don't even know you made it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's probably like 5% of PA people could say that Introversion were the ones that made it. And, so the number of people that follow you as a company compared to the number of gamers is quite... I think
far more people have heard of Prison Architect than have heard of Introversion software. You would think it's one-to-one, but it isn't. And it's just like movies. It's like so few people know who directs movies that they watch. You know, it's only really movie aficionados that can talk about movie directors and what films they made previously and kind of prevailing styles that they bring with them. You know, because we see it all from Introversion's point of view, but gamers just see a new game that they'd love to play, and I don't think they really care. You know?
Yes,
which is completely fair enough. It's not a complaint in any way.
No.
But we're not a band, are we? It's not a music thing where we're all like characters and personalities, and it's part of it.
No, but I also sort of think that we are. You know, there's a thread in all Introversion games, even though they're all very different. There is a thread. You do know what you're going to get. You know, you're not going to get a ad-ridden social game, right? You're going to get an experience that we've really carefully worked on and curated. Yeah. Irrespective of whether you might like Scanner or Darwinia or Prison Architect or Last Starship, they're all very different experiences, but there is definitely something that connects them.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And I think that will help us. That definitely helps us in early access because I think we've got that trust.
Yeah, it's very heartening to see that. We've had some very positive written responses to the Last Starship, actually. Partly from our questionnaire that we have at the end. For those that, we have to keep reminding myself, only a handful of people have played the game because of the playtest. Those that have played the game will know that at the end they're directed to a questionnaire where they're asked to rate, real scary questions.
Let's have a look at it then.
Have you enjoyed this game?
Yeah.
Would you play it again?
Because we had quite a lot of arguments
about
this.
This is the questionnaire, isn't it?
Internally, about whether to do this, how useful it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, the jury is still out on that, isn't it? I mean, we have all kinds of discussions about how, wrongly interpreting data is the source of a lot of business mistakes, I think.
Yes.
People look at data, they draw the wrong conclusion because they haven't understood what they're really seeing in the data, and then they decide to make decisions based on that wrong conclusion.
And we're not data scientists, and it's easy as well to just mindlessly throw up a bunch of questions. But, some of this stuff, the first couple of questions here, I enjoyed the game. I'm excited about the next update.
This is great. I mean, this put my mind to ease a great deal because I really didn't know what to expect. I really wasn't sure whether people were going to be able to get through the difficulty curve or they were just going to bounce off and never enjoy it. And I think, but I also like the fact that there's lots of room for improvement here. I want this to go all the way under 5 as we slowly work on it.
How many people have played?
We've got about 1,500. So we have 2,000 invites have gone out to the playtest.
Okay.
And about 1,500 have accepted the invite and have played the game. The last time I looked. So of those, about 1 in 3 have responded to the questionnaire. The thing to remember is that the questionnaire only pops up after their first playtests. So sometimes people have only played for half an hour when they get this questionnaire.
Yeah. Because there's always that fundamental question of bias, isn't there? Are the people that are filling in the questionnaire the people that are interested in it?
That's right. Yeah. But, or the 2/3 that didn't fill the questionnaire in, are they the ones that didn't enjoy the game?
Yeah, exactly. but at least you can say we've not got the histograms skewed the other way.
Yeah.
So those first two, I think there's not too much we can conclude, but it's positive influence. These next ones,
questions. We obviously have an audience that are willing to put up with no tutorial, no tooltips until this update, no help whatsoever. They just battle through. I mean, watching Quill was fascinating because Quill ran into all kinds of problems, but overcame them all just by playing around, trying stuff. He got stuck, he tried again, and he played it for 2.5 hours. We know that a big mainstream audience will not have the same level of patience. So, this is a biased question, isn't it? We're asking a biased sample of people.
It is. But I would say that that's the fundamental question that we're grappling with at the moment from a development point of view, right? How easy does that onboarding ramp need to be? And there's 2 points of view. I think there's 2 camps. There's one camp, which is you get one shot, you're putting it in front of people for the first time. All of that onboarding, that first hour has to be brilliant, has to be polished, has to be great. Otherwise, you're going to lose people. They're going to bounce off. They're never going to want to play it again. And then there's the other approach, which is to say, no, as long as we're honest about the messaging of it and people know that it's difficult, we can solve that onboarding issue with a number of other resources. So YouTube videos, wikis, the community in general helping each other out.
Community have already started writing guides, and there's already a wiki.
Guides,
there's lots of resources already starting to appear.
And I wonder if, in part, actually that becomes a positive thing because you build a more tightly knit community because the usability is not quite as obvious as it could be.
I think, like you say, it comes down to the issue of where do you put your time.
Yes.
If we were going to spend the entire next month working on advanced mining and industry features, they're going to be complex and they're going to be a level harder than the current game. And we're not going to be spending time doing tutorial and entry stuff. But you and I both know, and hopefully the people following the game know, that this is not going to be a simple game. It's going to be quite a complex game. It's going to require you to think about things and design and put effort in. To some extent, having a perfect first 15 minutes with beautiful onboarding and an amazing tutorial just delays the pain a little bit, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? You just push the vertical cliff of complexity 15 minutes down the road. And then when the tutorial ends, then it's bang, now you're in the open world and you can do whatever you want and there's no instructions. And you can never really win that because you just can't tutorialize all the things that we're going to put into this game.
No.
At some point, the player has to decide, I'm the sort of player that enjoys complexity and designing complex stuff. Like anyone that plays Factorio or Kerbal Space Program is that kind of player.
Yeah.
I think that our time is probably better spent adding systems to the game. With that said, we did spend a fair amount of time this month solving some of the most egregious usability problems that people run into in the first update because, we do need people to...
Well, you've got to.
We need some minimum level.
There's a balance, isn't there? There's a balance. If it's ridiculously steep, no one's going to enjoy it at all.
I think you and I don't want a tutorial, don't we? I think that we want there to be an entry ramp for sure to the game, but I don't think that you and I particularly want to personify that as like a sort of step-by-step tutorial. Click here to do this, now click here to install this. Yeah. We would rather find other ways to bring players in, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But we'll see. Who knows?
We will see. So then the next one, you're scrolling down a bit quick because the next couple of ones are just about ship design in general because that was something we weren't sure about, wasn't it?
This blinder of a question, to think that you and I didn't know whether people would want to make their own ships or not. I think that question's answered. Yeah. I also by the number of them that come in. I mean, how long have you played? Interesting because actually we don't really have a good idea of that. Despite Steam's analytics and attempt to introduce their own analytics, it's actually quite hard to figure that out. Well, don't forget this is taken after the end of their first playtest. So many players get this questionnaire and fill it in when they're less than an hour into the game. You can look at Steam graphs for how long people have played the game for, and there is a very satisfying spike in the 2 hours or more camp, which we really wanted to see. I mean, we were really worried that camp wouldn't exist.
I think this is really positive as well. 2/3 of the audience want to play more, 1/3 not really. That gives me some confidence that actually the data we're getting in here is not all positive.
Well, this says maybe once you update the build, right?
Yeah,
the no
exactly.
is only 0.9%, which was very hard to say. If this was 30%, no, I don't want to play anymore, I'd be shitting my pants at the moment.
Exactly.
Be thinking, my God, because the thing is that the people that have applied to our playtest are already invested a little bit, to some extent, in Introversion and this game. There are already people that are interested enough to want to play an early version. And they found out about it from our YouTube video, which means they're already following us. So this isn't a mainstream audience yet,
So, I have friends who play this game. I was quite interested in how many no's there were on this, actually. This was the first time I really raised an eyebrow.
5%.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment, maybe in the future. Yeah.
We have
launched the game very early.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much we can conclude from that, but I'm not too worried about it. This next question, I'm not even going to talk about it because pricing is absolutely not something we've agreed on. I suppose it gives people an idea like what sort of ballpark where we're thinking, but we're probably going to,
Interestingly, in the Prison Architect days, I think if we'd done this question at the start of Prison Architect and said $30, I think this would have been the other way around. I think that's a social change that's occurred on Steam.
Well, there's also been inflation, right? It's been 5
and there's been
years.
Just 10 years of inflation.
10 years.
Absolutely,
10 years since it. This one was interesting because this one I put in there, how much bigger will the final game be? Part of early access, for me, is not only giving a good experience that you play and enjoy right from the outset, but also it's us signaling what the direction is going to be, where it's going.
That's right.
And 50% of people, I take that as a failure. That 50%
we haven't communicated how big the game's going to be.
Exactly. Don't know what our scope is, and that's a positive result as well because we can do more work on that. One of the other benefits of this questionnaire is I think we're going to just leave it in and see how that changes.
See how it changes.
How those
we haven't communicated whether what you're seeing now in the playtest is the whole game and whether we've drawn a circle around it and this is it. Or whether this is just the beginning. Whether we only, because I think that it's the latter, isn't it? We see this as like the foundation for what could potentially be a much larger space game, and the foundation has to be solid before we can really enter early access and start taking people's money for it. But when we do take people's money for it, part of what we're selling, as well as the game, is the process of us adding to the game and the feeling of receiving new content updates on a regular schedule. Because we know from Prison Architect that people adored that feeling, of just constantly getting new stuff added to the game and the game expanding, and I kind of made it a mission of mine that each month people would load up their save game of a previous prison and would then feel there was a bunch of new stuff occurring within that prison that hadn't been occurring previously, new layers of simulation, new things to think about, and we hope to repeat that.
Yes, absolutely.
Then the text answers.
Yeah.
What part of the game needs the most work? This is amazing, isn't it? Look at this. This is a gold mine of people's considered opinions,
That's it. That we can, I think the way you process that, you don't process that by producing a bug list of every one of those things.
No.
It's very much, you just sort of, and it's very important, but you just read through it and absorb it, isn't it? It's just an input that goes in.
Yeah, I think that players are very good at spotting what's bad in a game. That's how I see it. You can read through this and you can see tutorial, UI, onboarding, user experience is a continuous repeated message. And you can infer from that people would prefer the user interface to be a little more intuitive. And have a little bit more help. And that completely tracks with our intuitive understanding as well. And tracks with us watching Quill play the game and struggle to find basic stuff. Because we forget, we've been working on it for over a year. So we just know where to click and what to do.
Yeah, that's it.
But what it can't really help you with, the questionnaire very rarely helps you with what to do about that.
Yes.
It doesn't really give you the answers. It just tells you what's wrong. It doesn't tell you how to fix it.
And I think as well, though, that we have an idea, and if we're surprised or not surprised is a data point in itself. If you scroll down through it, you go, yeah, we know. But if that was something completely different,
Yes.
if everybody was saying, I want more combat, I want more combat, more combat, more, that's the...
Yeah, or people listing things that we hadn't thought of.
Yes, exactly.
If people had started saying things like, I really want to be able to control my fleet of ships in the tactical map by using drag select and move them around like StarCraft, I think you and I would have been a little worried.
Yeah.
Because it would have meant, for example, that we'd communicated completely the wrong type of game that this is. And that's an extreme example, but we are looking for misunderstandings as well in what people write. If people write something and we think to ourselves, that is not in our plan because it's not that kind of game, that tells us things as well.
I understand how early access works, and I played PA. These ones. I mean, that's interesting. Like,
I think Steam have done this, right? Steam have made this happen. Steam have communicated what early access is, and 10 years of early access history have now made it a common, well understood thing.
But also that this is an audience that have applied to be at a playtest, right? So they do have I just hope their understanding is the same as ours. I wanted to put this in PA because we've sort of assumed that people have played PA, and there you go. There's the data, right? Only 2/3 of the audience for this.
A full third of our audience haven't played Prison Architect, our biggest game ever. So it's like, who are they? Who are these people?
Have they played? I mean, maybe we could adjust it and say I've heard of Introversion before. A couple of demographics, and clearly something's gone wrong with this question.
Which one?
Who is better?
Oh yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe there was some sort of error in the the questionnaire at that point.
They must have. It must have just. They must be flipped or something, I reckon.
Yeah, I think our viewers know who does all the real work around here, mate, don't they? That's why.
Do you know what? Do you know why I asked that question? This question was the one that I wanted to find out whether they were watching the videos or not.
Right.
That was the actual message here, right?
So this is actually the important one, right? People didn't understand the joke.
Exactly. So the important one is 50% of our audience either don't know what I'm asking, right, or don't want to, don't get it.
Well, it is a dumb question though, and I think we should make it clear to the people watching now that you made this question and added it to the questionnaire. I mean, I would tick what the fuck.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I wouldn't. I would tick Chris. But I mean, I would expect most people to tick what the fuck.
Yeah, but they didn't, did they? There you go. So that's challenge your. So half the people tick what the fuck. So that means is half the people get it, but we don't know. Don't know why.
We don't know anything.
And they're wrong. Yeah.
There's never a future, no matter how many multiverses we live in, where this Mark box is bigger than this Chris box. That's what I would say for certain. In the endless hierarchy of the Marvel fucking multiverse that we live in, right? The Chris box will always be bigger than the Mark box, right? And if it isn't, something's gone really wrong, and it's a case of a quantum leap,
That's why I put it in there, mate. It's like it's the sanity check to make sure the questionnaire is working.
Awesome. Well, that was a fun deep dive into some of our behind-the-scenes data.
Yeah. If you want to see more of these deep dives, then let us know and we'll do them. But if it's not of interest, then we won't bother.
Yeah.
There we go.
Great.
We'll leave it there. Cheerio.